Hotel Staffing and HR, in conjunction with PatriotTV.live, bring you Play Harder Radio, the premier patriotic sports and BS talk show from America's Gulf Coast. Things that matter in the world of sports and things that don't matter to anyone. It's just Faja's opinion. Where the F-bomb is allowed, but frowned upon. This is Play Harder Radio. And now, your host, James Grant.
All right. Welcome back to another week of Play Harder Radio. I am Jim Grant. This is Col Chris Holzworth. He's our guest this week. Caveman, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jim, for having me. I appreciate it.
They call me Faja, so if you want to call, I'll call you Caveman. You call me Faja.
Faja flight inbound, hot.
Hot.
From
You guys are gonna
inbound. We're laying fire and we're putting troops in zone, aren't we tonight?
You guys that's what we're doing. You guys are gonna love it tonight. You know what? I say the F-bomb is allowed but frowned upon, and I don't really like to use it a lot, but I'm fucking fired up about tonight's show. I'm sorry. I'm excited. So, Col Holzworth is the founder of the 5K charity run for children. We're going to be in our 37th year. Before we get to that, and we're going to talk about that tonight, we're going to talk about his career, some things about his career. What did I do with that paper? Oh, I gave it to you, Todd. Would you give that to Ed?
Yeah, there you go, yeah.
I didn't realize what I might put that picture up on the screen for everybody.
Don't put that picture
That kid.
up. Yeah.
Kid.
Yeah.
It's his senior picture from high school.
Yeah, that's, boy.
Okay, it's up.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah. You don't look a day different. You don't look any different.
You're kind and extraordinarily gracious. Yeah, I have a little bit of age on me now.
Yeah, me too, no doubt. But you know what? I'm getting younger.
No,
that's my deal.
Yeah.
I am so sick of hearing people say, "Oh, well, we're getting older," and I'm like, "You're damn right you are."
Yeah.
Just keep talking it. Just keep speaking it into existence and keep getting older. Or don't.
That's like saying that they don't like America. I'm sick of that. So I'm vested. I love this country. Generations of my family have loved and prospered through the freedom and the free market governance of this nation, the republic. I love this country. I absolutely love it. I'm tired of people saying how the country is. Don't say that around me. I'm gonna come over the table at you. So don't.
And Andy's prepared to.
Yeah.
So
he's prepared.
Speaking of things like that, he brought me this tonight. Marine Corps League of Pensacola golf polo.
Well,
I'm going to be wearing this thing, I can tell you that.
Well, that's the finest Marine Corps league in the nation at this time of veterans, supporting the community that helps veterans and supporting the active duty forces in this community. That's the finest debt, the J.R. Spears debt in the nation. People will solicit you on the side of the road for that shirt. They will probably try to roll you for that shirt. So with that in mind, I knew you could defend it.
Bring it. You know what? I'm honored. You have no idea. You know this a little bit about me, and I've told Ed before, and you've been, and every member of the Marine Corps League is very gracious to me, and because I didn't serve, it's my greatest regret in life is that I didn't serve, and most everybody that I say that to says, you know what, don't regret it. We appreciate what you're doing now.
Absolutely.
And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I just love America like you do.
Yeah.
And I'm just missed out on getting to serve her.
Well, I go to a lot of retirements of my friends, military officers that have gone up the ranks and to leadership. And the first thing they say is, I have no regrets. And I'll tell you, if if you didn't live your life, you wouldn't have you would have no regrets. You lived your life and you had regrets. I tell you, I wouldn't have done it any differently than what I did in my life, but I do have regrets. I regret the Marines that were killed under my orders. I regret the Marines who were. I wouldn't have done it any differently. I would have done it better.
Right.
Better. I would have done it better. I would have served my country better for those Marines. So.
Do you have any? When I guess we say regret, or when you look back or whatever, do you ever have a little bit of somber moments and stuff, thinking about how things went and what maybe you'd have done different in a certain situation?
Yeah, during combat surge in 2007 in Al-Anbar province, when really the nation didn't think that we could secure the area to a place where a republic could get started, and security is the baseline of everything. It was a fairly kinetic time period. Ramadi, they compared that to Stalingrad on the Euphrates, and you couldn't walk the streets of Ramadi without being engaged by either snipers or an IED with follow-on automatic weapon or heavy machine gun fire in an urban environment. Very tough fighting. We found out there was a sniper patrol, but in Marines, as an operations officer of the 21 squadrons bedded down there, we made decisions that we were trying our best in support of the scheme of maneuver for troops in contact, vertical assault, direct actions maneuver, deliberate strikes, 4,500 casualties in that 13 months. And I will tell you, I look back on the decisions we made in the air tasking order, and, the 7-8 Marines that were killed with my decisions, and the 438 were wounded in that year. I think about those people just about every day. I know the names, and for me, we trained them all here in Pensacola, Florida. They were favorite sons and daughters of Pensacola. They all trained here to twist a wrench and crew an aircraft and bring that aircraft to bear in that battlefield drama. And I was their commander during that time, and then I went forward with them. And I knew them. I knew all of them, and I knew them in my command. And so, to say I didn't have any regrets would be not truthful. I have regrets about. I wish I'd. My only regret is I wish I would have been better in leading them and determining the enemy's strength and really planning. I regret their loss very much.
So for you guys out there, to give you an idea of Caveman's service, it was 27 years. Right. You served 7 overseas deployments. Right. 6 combat contingency tours. Right. Panama, First Gulf War, Bosnia, Haiti, Iraqi freedom, and Afghanistan. Yes. That's a hell of a career.
Well, and I like to say that I crafted that, or I did, and I like to say that was different from anybody's the generation that I went in with, but it wasn't. It was where we ended up doing contingency ops from evacuations of embassies, and we did one in Rangoon, Burma in 1988. No one even read about as the embassy was getting overrun. The Marines went in and secured the perimeter. We came in, extracted. A C-141 came into the Capitol. They came and got all the embassy as we extracted them out by helicopter. And no one even thought about that. And Panama the same way. We were doing maritime interdiction. But I'd like to say that was more than anybody else, but it was what we all contributed at the time. Bosnia with UN forces for one tour, and then with I-4 with NATO forces with another tour. So with that in mind, it just unfolded that way in our nation's history.
You let's see. You retired in 2010. At that time, you were the chief of staff of the 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing in Cherry Point.
Yes, there's, as everybody knows, the Marine Corps is in threes, of which and it's mandated by Title 10. It's mandated by the law that there'll be 3 wings, aviation wings. There'll be 3 divisions, and there'll be 3 logistics groups. And so I was one of 9 chiefs of staff. All 3 of those had chiefs of staff that worked directly under the general and second in command, and really running the staff that ran the Marine Air Groups on the East Coast of our nation.
I guess you couldn't. I guess there probably needed to be 3 of you in each division because you couldn't work 24 hours a day.
Well, yeah. It was there was 9 colonels out there, and it's very, we were, in that time, I'd just gotten back from doing a tour in Iraq, and we were splitting up to do the troop the task for putting forces into Helmand Province in 2009, which we did in May of 2001, and they went into combat operations in July, and so I was advancing in and out of that area. But it was a very during that period at 2nd Marine Air Wing, from combat surge in Iraq to moving forces in a kind of a 2-front war. We had 37,000 Marines in Al Anbar in Iraq, and
wow.
then we put a brigade with an air combat element in support of that brigade in Helmand Province. And so it was a really kinetic, busy time in which not a lot of people knew that we were stretched pretty thin, pretty razor thin on that deal. So everybody went. There was no one that was spared on that thing.
Why were you stretched thin? Just lack of enlistment, or?
No, just the nature of the cap of the manpower of the Marine Corps. At that time, we were 205. My Marine Corps, I grew up in about 179,000 Marines, 22,000 officers. General Conway, who was the commandant at that time, wanted to build Marine Corps forces, and mostly force recon from MARSOC. Number 1. Number 2, aviation assets, more attack, and especially attack helicopter communities and assault. And last but not least, the ID thing, he wanted to build more EOD. So he added more squadrons onto it. But the demand, the security department's demand for forward combat forces and the rotation, we just never could keep up with the demand. So you were either getting ready to go to war, you were in war, or you were coming back from war at that time. I commanded here at the Air Group, and 36 hours after I gave the flag up, which the minute a former commander, the whole staff goes, "Good job, sir," everything. But I get to the commander, they almost knocked it down. God, I was the funniest, gifted, most handsome man in the command until I gave up the flag, and then all of a sudden,
they're like, "Thank you."
But sir, get out of the way. So I get the new commander. 36 hours later, I was, I had been selected to go forward as the OPSO of the wing, forward in combat, and so I was there 36 hours later for a year stretch. So
What were the aircraft that you under your command? And what did you fly?
I was an assault guy, so I flew 46s, which were troops in zone. The main mission was simultaneous insert of combat power, and that's the most lethal weapon, as you already know. It's not that missile coming off the rail or the precision-guided missile. It's not that Hellfire coming off a weapon station. It's the Marine coming off that ramp is the most lethal weapon in the inventory. It's the most valuable. Ask the American public who's more valuable, that 2.75 or 5-inch HE coming off an attacks rail, or that 18-year-old Marine with his killer stick coming off my ramp. And I will tell you, the American public, that's a softball question. We'll tell you, no, it's the sons and daughters, it's the wives and husbands. And what's more lethal, you might hit something with that missile, you might hit something with that 20 Mike coming out of that front cannon, but that Marine is going to be like Locust, and the next day you can wake him up, give him an MRE, and he will engage the enemy.
He'll do it all over again.
He'll do it all over again. So I carried the most valuable weapon in the arsenal. I carried the most lethal weapon in the arsenal. I carried a Marine with his killer stick off the ramp, and that was the principal job. We had other, from special ops missions to recon insert to maritime interdiction, taking down boats, to MOUT, to marine operations in urban terrain. And as everybody knows, taking down a building, it's like taking down a bridge. You always do it from two sides. So you put Marines on both sides and they close in. Same way with a boat. You go to the stern and the aft, you fast rope it on with sniper platforms, Huey sniper platforms that cover you, and you put it in. And you go stern to bow and you trap the enemy in the fuselage. Same way with the building. If we have a sniper in the building, we're going to take down the building from the top and the bottom, right? And everything behind us will be secure until we go into close combat with that guy. So that's what I flew. I got a chance to fly a bunch of different things, but 21 squadrons forward, bedded down in 4 different locations in Al Anbar, of which Al Assad was the headquarters for the wing that did the air tasking order, which gave assault in a 72, 48-hour, 24-hour spin, from everything from targeting to maneuver to sustainment to vertical assault to strip alerts for attack aircraft for troops in contact. And that, as a lot of insurgent ops, there's no lines and there's no uniform. So every time you fly outside the wire, every time you patrol outside a FOB, a forward operational base, you're in enemy territory. And how we fixed them was we exposed ourselves. We did dismounted and mounted patrols, and we'd expose ourselves with strip alert aircraft, either in the SAC or in attack positions, quick reaction force of assault coming in, and we'd let them engage us, and especially in Ramadi.
To expose themselves?
We'd expose ourselves by patrolling. Right?
And then that would expose them when they engaged you?
Yeah, exactly right. We'd fix the enemy by exposing, and of course there was no uniforms and no lines, so they would initiate an attack with an IED. They would have ambush sectors of which there'd be automatic or heavy machine gun. They might initiate attack in Ramadi. There was a sniper school there, and we had to do sniper overwatch. We'd have Marine and SEALs, Chris Kyle, right, doing overwatch for Marines patrolling, right, and a sniper would engage. Of course, the platoon commander down there would have to get his Marines down. He didn't know where the shot came from. Marine would be wounded in the marketplace. Kylie, or a guy named Blake Cole, who's a Cobra pilot now, would do a back azimuth to where he saw the shot, and he would engage either Number one, the best way was we had attack heels in attack positions. They'd come in, he'd call in a 9 line, and they'd take down the building. Rules of engagement, they'd always intermix themselves with civilian population. The next way was call the company commander down there and say he's in this building. Quick reaction force to the top. We'd fast rope top, bottom, and we'd secure the building that way, trapping them in the middle. And the last way, which wasn't the best way, was that our Overwatch sniper would return fire. And if he missed, he'd have to move. He'd have to move. So it was a Ramadi. You couldn't walk the streets without getting engaged. When I first got there, we had an aircraft shot down in February of 2008 on a vertical assault in the marketplace. The crew's wings are in our Marine Aviation Memorial Tower. The families of the crews that got shot down let the wings be forged into the bell. But Ramadi was a nightmare of you couldn't walk the streets without getting engaged, and so I got there, and I went to see how the forward air controllers that were stationed, aviators stationed with the ground forces, were integrating with running air into an urban environment with a company engaged. So I got there and I said, I'm going to go forward and see how this is. So I got all my battle gear on, the flaps and the Kevlar. And there was a kid named Captain Lingy. His call sign was Cunny, believe it or not, right? You could probably put that together. We have body sense of humor in the Marine aviation. And, he had called, and I was in Ramadi, and so he was up on the top of the building. These forward air commanders would have a radio man, and they would be calling in air, and they'd be just as close enough to the engagement where that they'd see the lines, and just far enough away that they wouldn't get shot. So he was on the top of the building. The company was getting engaged from the building with insurgents. So I crawled up on the building. There was a little bit of a lip there. And, and I crawled, and I saw him there. And so I'm crawling there. And there was Captain Lingy, and he was calling in air. He said, "Sir, how are you?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm just seeing how everything's going here." And he goes, "I'm running air right now, sir. Can you handle the tack neck down to the company?" And I said, "Yeah, give me the radio." He would give the 9 line, and I would call the company and say, "They're coming east-west, and here's the azimuth, and here's what they're going to lay. They're going to lay the 20 mic, or they're going to lay," and the company commander would get everybody down, and then you'd see the Cobra or the Huey coming in, mostly attack helicopters in close in-fire. And so I sat there underneath the lid. It was kind of hot, We were sitting there with a guy named Big Deal, who was a colonel that we worked together in the ops division. And so we ran air for a little bit, and I said, "Man, this is going well." And he goes, "Yeah, it's going okay, sir." And then... and he was an EA-6B pilot that was doing this ground tour in Ramadi with, I think it was 8th Marines. It took a lot of casualties there, about 147 casualties. And, all of a sudden he nudged me and said, "Hey, sir, look at that." And, of course, we were in the probe position underneath the lid of the thing. And it was the ground combat element commander who was being replaced by a guy named Gerganis. It was General Neller, who became the commandant of the Marine Corps. And he was up on the building there. And, of course, he had an entourage. I told Colonel Deal, "Where's our entourage? Where's our bunch of infantry protecting us?" He had an entourage, and he was in the prone position on that building. He was laying fire into that building against the insurgents. So lineal list number 1 on that battlefield that day was actually engaging the enemy, and he goes, "You don't see that ever, do you?" A
general and 2 colonels on the same roof in Kevlar, in
in Ramadi. Yeah,
in Ramadi.
Yeah.
So that you weren't back in the tent yelling on the radio.
Well, no, we were. I flew because I wanted to see how the things were unfolding, air in support of the ground. We had 41 named operations in El Anabar. We had over 400 vertical assaults, direct action hits where we put force recon or troops right on top of the enemy. We ran some pretty deadly deliberate strikes, pretty kinetic. President Bush came out on September 6th and said, "Hey, no one believes you're going to win here. If El Anabar falls, all the other provinces will fall. So take your gloves off," and we did. We did things that you would not think that we were capable of doing, but you underestimate.
So you had some. They did let you take the gloves. I was going to ask you that, and I don't know what to ask, what not to. It's like. But that's nice to know that they let you take the gloves off.
No, he said, we had governors in each province, 16 provinces, and then there were the sheiks, and the sheiks, based on Sunni or Shiite or Kurds in the northern regions, would really give us actionable intel, and that's what we needed. Even the president, after President Bush was saying the war is lost and they won't be able to do it, and which is kind of demoralizing when you're forward in combat to hear that your own civilian leadership doesn't believe in what you're doing and you're risking.
The commander in chief.
Yeah, so when he came, it was a clandestine visit. He went to the sheiks. They all met in Al Asad, and he said he said to us, he came into I was the director of the Tactical Air Command and Control Center for all air operations support in Al Anabar, which was Eastern Baghdad, Fallujah, Ramadi, the Euphrates River Valley, hit Haditha all the way to Ka and all the western desert. It was a little bit less in Utah. Then we had 4 bedded down and regiments that were in AOs in the area. And he said, no one believes you're going to win, so go to work. I'm the only, go to work right now, go to work, and we're going to give you actual intel. And he did, and we did what American Marines
That was
would
Bush?
do. That was Bush that did that. Yeah, that was Bush. September 6th he came, and, clandestine. Katie Couric happened to be there. She was a classmate of mine at UVA,
Oh, really?
University of Virginia. And she came in and saw me, and then she realized that President Bush was flying in clandestine, and she had been interviewing Petraeus, who was the theater commander, and he met, and we did. We went to work, and I talk this a lot, and it's hard to, the American public's hard to accept this, but you can hold a security environment in combat with superior training technology and funds. You can hold it, but you're going to take casualties. In order to win it, you have to match the ferocity of the enemy.
Right.
You have to match their willingness to promulgate their will by the sword. You have to match their ferocity, and you have to exceed their ferocity in order to deter them. You have to succeed, and not American. A lot of American publics, they don't teach that in Sunday school or in the pews or in the Cub Scout. You have to learn how to do that to a level that is almost, it's hard to describe the
A lot of people don't want to know.
Yeah, and I understand that.
I do.
But if civilian leadership is willing to commit our sons and daughters, and it's not our oil reserves or our technology or our innovation that is the treasure of the American people, it's the sons and daughters. If they're willing to commit them to that promulgation of our will. They got to know that in order to win, you don't hold anything. Because no one respects you. The only thing they respect is that if you match their veracity and go beyond, and that will deter them. But you got to be, and it's unfathomable the things they did that you didn't. Katie didn't report on those. She reported on us, but it's unfathomable the things they will do for their cause. There's Jim, I'm telling you, there's no good people on that battlefield. And the worst ones are the ones that are going to survive. There's no
right.
And then you got to come back, and after you've done some pretty tremendous things, you got to kind of assimilate into a culture that doesn't understand that. I followed orders for love of my nation, and I did some pretty unfathomable
to
things
survive too.
To survive.
For the nation to survive.
And for the nation to survive. But if you want to hold, you can hold with superior technology and training. You're going to take casualties, and it will go on and on and on to the American people. If you want to go to work, we're capable, we're trained, equipped, planned to go to work. And in that regard, no one respects somebody that'll you have to exceed the veracity of the enemy because they're willing to die for that. You have to kill them in such a manner that it's so unfathomable that no one will want to take up that cause ever again.
Right.
That's the old. When we didn't march to Baghdad and displace Saddam Hussein, man, they won. They won, that we stopped at the border. Look, we dressed down the largest coalition for freedom ever to exist in freeing Kuwait, and they didn't come and get you. We won. We won. That's the nature of that. And they think we're weak. We're extraordinarily weak. And so if you want to take casualties, let's hold, right? Let's hold. But if you want to go to work and we're capable of going to work, well, let us go to work. Trump definitely let us go to work. Let us go to work and do what we have to do, realizing that, a whole generation is changed by that. There's no,
right.
There's a song about the death of innocence. Once you go, it's like
right.
It's like shoplifting.
You can't go back.
Oh no, you're a little bit different. Your Little League coach didn't teach you how to do that. You have to be trained to do things that you need to do on the battlefield, and it's almost unfathomable. The things that you'll see, and you can look up and down the pew of your church, and no one's seen anybody killed right in front of them. Right in front of them. There's less than 1% that have seen anybody's head blown off or a limb that's fallen off. No, well, that's what we've seen over the last 15 years of tremendous combat. So you have a whole generation that's seen all that. And it's trying to dissimulate in. And they did it for the love of their nation. They did it for the esprit de corps they felt with the guys that were suffering with them. They did it to survive. But you have to know that there's no way to defeat an enemy by the sword if you're not going to match their veracity.
Right.
And match their commitment. And they think their cause, Jim, They think they're the good guys. They believe in their cause all the way up to sacrificing, pulling the lanyard on that vest, sacrificing themselves. We feel the same way. There's no good guys on that battlefield. I'm telling you that. There's only bad and worse, and the worst ones are going to win. Worst ones are going to promenade their authority. So when you read things that we saw, drilling little kids' heads, brains out with Black & Decker tools and chopping the left hand of a village elder that didn't, all the kids' hands, and we'd we'd patrol through a village and find all their left hands because the insurgents came in. The village elder wouldn't cache or hide their weapons. And so he lined up all the kids, and I will tell you those things, and I hope your audience is okay with that, because I'm just,
I think it's good I think people need to know that.
Well,
they think they're the good guys, but
my generation of salt, we're all named after fat farm animals or something related to their intellect. He's a real Neanderthal. He's a real caveman. And so, the upside of that is, I'm known for my direct but incredibly shallow thinking, and the realm. I'm going to do something different in naval leadership. I'm just going to tell you the truth. I'm just going to tell you the truth and let you cope with it the way I've had to cope with the truth, the reality of a at times an incredibly dark life, and so I'm just going to tell you the truth. That our American public didn't report on what the enemy did, and the enemy was unfathomably ruthless. And in order for us to stem the enemy, we did unfathomably ruthless things, and everybody knows that did that, and we don't talk about it. But are we capable of that? Absolutely. Can we do it better than anybody in the world? Yeah, we're resourced and equipped, but the edge is our combat proficiency. The edge is the American public supporting that. The edge is knowing that humanity, in the history of humanity's actions with each other, the staple is not peace, it's war. The exception to the rule is peace. So until we learn to get along with each other, we have to have forces that will protect the dream, the ideology, our quality of life. We have to have men and women that will sacrifice. Service is about sacrifice, and do what our nation does. And that's why the leadership has to be good, because guess what? It's not for, to open up your resort or pay your deal. It's got to be so pure when you decide to pull the lever on that, because there's not been a contingency ops that you just named that people didn't lose their lives. Not one time that I went forward that people, either in training to get ready to actually implementing it and being on the battlefield, you're going to lose Americans, right? And so that the serious nature of which you addressing humanity's constant, man, the leadership's got to know what that's involved, what it takes to train, equip, resource, and then commit to that decision. It can't be light, and it can't be something that's you're either all in or you're all out. And if it's halfway,
you're done.
You're done. You're absolutely done.
So you've been, in forward operating base, you've been right in the middle of it. I mean, that just blows my mind. 2 colonels and a general up on the same roof, and the number one guy.
I got to tell you I worked for him in the Pentagon he was a 1-star, and I was a branch head in operations division of the G3, and he never liked an aviator in one of the branch head. I was headquarters for Force Recon and Joint ID and the amphibious shipping and naval gunfire, and he never liked an aviator, and he told me right up front, I don't want an aviator in this billet. And I said, well, consider me a grunt that knows how to fly. Just think of me as the infantry that knows how to fly. He couldn't get over that. We worked really hard. That was the march to Baghdad, and we were operations element in the Pentagon for that. And he said at the end, gee, you're a below average performer that performed average as a colonel branch head in my operations division. So I was, you exceeded my expectations. I was happily surprised with. I thought you were crap. You were better than crap during this time period. And I said, well, gee, that's nice. So I knew him, and so we looked at each other for a second, and then I said to Caveman, I said, gee, do you have this? Because I'm going to go down on the street. I'm going to get with the company commander. And he said, yeah, I got it, sir. If you want to crawl down. And I crawled down. I don't think I've ever been closer to the ground than I was that day. I made myself the ground.
Right.
And me and Colonel Deal crawled down the ladder well there of the building. But I will tell you, Jim, that's characteristic of the United States Marine Corps, to see number one guy coming to see a company engaged under his command, and him drawing his weapon and helping that company by laying fire into that building. And Captain Ling goes, well, you don't see that. You don't see that of the. I mean, there's the commander of the ground combat element of across LN and Bar province laying fire into the building. You say to yourself, holy cow! It's like Washington drawing his sword and leading the Trenton on the front boat of the thing. Follow me. It's like it's Chesty Puller taking that amphibious side. Follow me. Hey, at Chosen Reservoir. Hey, we got them right where we want them. We're surrounded, so we can attack in every position, every direction. It's General Pittman saying, "Hey, we have a Laos special ops mission where we got to get these recon out under fire. Who's going with me? Who's going to go with me?" Who's going to go with me?
I was going to say that we're going to talk about another number one who wasn't afraid to mix it up when we talk about the run. But let me get a couple things out. You did 2 tours in the Pentagon.
Right.
How'd you like that versus being over in it?
I would rather be violated in a Turkish prison camp by big Turkish guards holding me. I'll fight, but then have to go to the Pentagon. It's a really 40,000 people night and day in a 5-sided building to pretty much moronic behavior, trying to figure out strategic plans, visions, not only in weapon systems and resources, but maneuvering of forces. And it was, they were both really frustrating tours and very, I'm going to tell you something that you don't want to hear, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway. You realize that the leadership of your force is pretty human. They're not like the poster that I hope I could be like him someday.
Right.
You figure out that the course of action that they're going, that'll implement to the maneuver element level, the wings, the divisions, the logistics groups, to the Marine Corps, the 2 MEFs, right, the Marine Expeditionary Forces, is sometimes the criteria, the main criteria is the least worst course of action that they can implement with the resources and the training they have, the least worst course of action. So with that in mind, and I'm being totally, man, you're getting the full Monty of honesty. But if you think these guys aren't human that are wearing 2, 3, 4 stars or birds on their thing, they're very much will make mistakes. They're very much human. And when you work in close working groups to briefing of not only your commandant, your service chiefs, but the tank, you got the Joint Chiefs of Staff in there, and you're briefing troops to task to the security environment, the enemy threat, and this is what I think we need the force. And you got the POTUS, videotaping in, and you realize that the discussions are these guys are really human, and they make mistakes, and whatever expertise they're wearing on their shoulders or on their front, there's still posturing going on right there, and I imagine that's in every higher headquarters around the world, but it's pretty shocking when you're a true believer. You go to the Pentagon, you go, whoa, wait a minute. Did we just do that? Did we just make the decision to do that? And at the lower level, you go, you look at the plan, you go, who thought this?
Right. Just like in the movies.
Yeah.
Right? He gets the phone off the phone.
Yeah, what guys thought this up? Who thought? And then you realize it's you that thought that up. And you say to yourself, holy mackerel. I mean, some guy that's going to man an aircraft tonight or patrol on a perimeter tonight or do this raid is going to say, who the F thought this up? Guy, and then you realize it was you that thought that up. Yeah, and you're and so and I suppose there's people that think they're not human. They never make mistakes, and after $40 million of developing a weapon system that'll never come into fruition, and we slide that, and they've had several working groups retire on that deal. Well, it's extraordinarily illuminating to see what's going on, and you say to yourself, how does this work? And it comes down to those strategic positions so that you can influence the decision makers as far as the direction. Of course, POTUS is involved with just about everything on a moving level. It's got to be somewhat acceptable. And then you have the political spin on it. You have the political, what are a failure of success, what is the political repercussions of this? And that's, in civilian leadership of the military, you always have to consider the political officer, right? Yeah, the political civilian leadership. Well, if I vote for this and it goes south, what is my chances of staying in office? And you guys better get this done. Not that it adds more pressure on us, but you better get this done.
Did you retired you graduated from UVA in 79.
Right.
And shortly after that, you went into the Marine Corps, accepted a commission.
Yep.
So you served did you go in 79?
No, I went to work for a company, and I went back to graduate school. And there was.
So you went in 83 then, if you retired in 2010.
Yeah.
So 5 presidents.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you were in 27 years, and so what made you retire? Did the last POTUS have anything to do with it?
Well, a little bit. The administration's direction, as far we went into Afghanistan after fighting in Iraq on a kind of a campaign promise, of which the security environment and the history of the security environment didn't warrant us. Everybody that occupied in Afghanistan has gotten their asses kicked. I mean, you go all the way back to Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great, all the way through the British, the French, and then the recent years, the Soviets. Yeah, in 3 tribes, the Muj, that are interpretations of the governments of the Quran, a higher or lower interpretation of the Quran's foundation, which is their governments, their rule of law, their social norms as far as the roles of men and women.
There's no separation of church and state over there. It's all one.
Oh, it's the Quran, and how they interpret it is how their their governance is going to go all the way through their justice system to what men and women can do in that province, in that sector. So with that in mind, here you have a bridging nation from Asia Minor to Europe, surrounded by supporting entities, right? It sounds like Cambodia and Laos and China, right? That's been fighting in their territory for centuries, occupying forces that have used that as a bridge to other military targets. The historical precedence is no one's ever occupied there and gotten out unscathed. They have support from the Taliban to Al-Qaeda. Their governance is always corrupt. So whoever we align ourselves and stand up, they corrupt. The president, when we were in and out of there, when I was involved with that, was his brother was the worst drug dealer in the whole country, right? And we were supporting that. The strategic paradigm, they can't hurt us, right? We're doing that to make sure there's logistics, training, funding of terrorist activity, Al-Qaeda through the Taliban. It's not being done, right? But the strategic paradigm, and then the historical precedents, everybody that's occupied there. So if you add that all up in a trend analysis of putting forces there, that was in my opinion, that was a bad plan from the get-go, up to 150 grand of forces, and about 8 times the number of contractors from logistics to special ops were all there. $4 trillion later, all right, $4 trillion later, and priceless number of wounded and killed, all right, over that period. It is no better off than it was. We got involved with a civil war because it was funding what we thought is terrorism. If we wanted to deter that funding, logistics, sustainment, training, why don't we just put special forces and bomb the poppy fields,
Right.
And take that away, and they'd starve over the winter because that's the only thing they have. But there's nothing there that's worth an American's life, and there's no paradigm. We went against historical precedents. It's a trend analysis, and we made an incredibly bad decision. And now we're going to leave it just like we left Vietnam, and they'll take Bagram Air Force Base, and they'll take everything. And the people that were aligned with us, that were actually good, that we were protecting, they'll be put in concentration camps.
If they're lucky, probably,
if they're
right?
lucky, most of them will leave their lives. So in keeping with that, that decision went against all logic of historical precedents for that area. And if we wanted to deter it, but we didn't have to occupy, and we didn't have to take those casualties to this end state to do the exact thing that we want to do, and that's deny the Taliban from supporting Al-Qaeda with financing and logistics and training. There was other ways that we could have done that. And, we never seem to learn from that. We're not a empirical nation. We didn't like to be colonized ourselves. I think we had a revolution about that. I think I read that somewhere in a book or something. Was that in a book somewhere?
Did they teach that in school when you were in school?
I think
Something
I
like
taught
that
in school, that we didn't like to be told what to do from another nation either.
We're the imperialist scum of the world.
Yeah, so with that in mind, we will go and give a blanket of security and help, and we will stay and provide that security, which is the number one draw of their GMP, to establish a democratic representative republic that they can prosper and grow, and the umbrella is our security they provide for them. We will go, but we don't make Japan America, and we don't make Korea America. We don't, we don't turn the Brits turned them into British,
Right.
where the national game is crickets and everything. We don't, we want their culture to grow, but under the bastion of freedom that we can provide to the foundation that's security. You can't build Club Med or the Nike factory or freshwater, electrical, or roads or hospitals or education if it's going to be overrun by insurgencies, man.
Right.
And we give fledgling governments that opportunity. I mean, if we want to do that in Afghanistan, I would support staying there. But we got to make a commitment to that. But there's
Do they even want it? The government that's there doesn't want it, right?
And it's a really interesting, it's an astute question. I'm not sure because these are really rough terrain, rough people, and rough existence. They eat everything out of a sheep. In the winter, if they don't have a good harvest of the poppy, they're going to not survive through the winter. They have very strict social norms of the interpretation of the Quran, and that, just like the Bible, it's interpreted in different ways by different sects of Protestants and Catholics.
Right.
I mean, some say you can drink, and others say you can't, and still be a Christian, and
Right.
so it's being interpreted in different ways, and you'll see that throughout the Middle East. It'll be more fundamentalist or less fundamentalist, and this is a really rough, when you see infant mortality and education rates that are very, very, very high on the infant and low on the education, we have a very rough society here. And,
Right.
and they've been warring against each other, the tribes, for centuries. So I mean, and there's the logistics problem of supporting any force in occupation hundreds and thousands of miles away with food and training and everything. And none of that was considered in the step up to go there. So in the end result,
To Iraq or to get Afghanistan?
Afghanistan, much tougher than Iraq.
Right.
Much.
But
Because
you just have precedent from a pretty serious military force within 20 years who couldn't get it done,
None.
who got their ass beat up.
Oh, take a look at the history of Afghanistan. Anybody that's trying to transition or occupy there, man, they've taken it in the chin, and it's just, and they have surrounding allied nations that'll give them safe haven. They Helmand province was right on the border of Pakistan. The insurgents would zip back into Pakistan. Of course, they're supposed to be an ally to us.
We should give them a few $100 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or are they in the billion range?
Yeah. So with that in mind, it's based on the historical precedents and real study of the environment, as you look at trend analysis of other environments, it had real parallel comparison to Vietnam, number one, except it wasn't communism, and number two, you weren't going to win there. I'm telling you that, where you weren't going to change the hearts and minds of the people. And number three, you're going to take a lot in the logistics trade of. I mean, you can't support anything by air, and there's
Right.
there's no land MSRs, major supply roads. Air will be quick and nice, and you can get your envelope overnight from FedEx. But you can't support large, sustaining. You got to have some type of bridge of friendly nations, national host nations, to help you with a bridge of land. How you move things is by trucks and
Right.
sea, and so it was almost from the get-go. It was almost and a lot of us, we're in uniform and following orders, but we said, what are we doing here, And if you talk to anybody that went and flew dust off or flew assault or flew attack there or did patrols, they would say the same thing, what are we doing here? And towards the end here, it was the contractors that were, we were paying big money to them.
Yeah, tons.
It was a marketplace, it was a marketplace for defense industry to to promulgate their, we couldn't get the uniforms to do this. It's in the gray area of the rules of engagement, or they didn't want to do that logistics work. So we're going to hire a private contractor, and they wanted to keep it going to, and that's shades of a war we fought before, everybody was making a buck off of $4 trillion. We were jumping into it, but in the meantime, it's off the backs of the American public's sons and daughters.
Private contractors, but really, correct me if I'm wrong, mercenaries.
Well, in some venues of that regard, I mean, you got, there's a reason they pay you that much money, the Dinosaurs and the Northrop Grummans and the other people that are involved with, you got a bunch of 46 pilots flying State Department, embassy, and the State Department always has a station chief that says he's State Department, but he's really the CIA, and so you're flying missions, and with that in mind, you make a good wage for the same thing that the military paid you, about 1/8 of what.
Right.
But there's a reason, that those guys, I was there when the land envoy to Nasiriyah got jumped at the bridge, and of course the security contractors went out and laid fire for them to get away, and they were all captured, and their bodies were burned on the bridge.
The contractors?
Yeah, and we sent a UAV feed over to the thing. There's no response. You were on your own there, unless the company was going to go get you. You were on your own.
Right.
So there's a reason that they'll pay you for those. You have the experience in the thing, and you'd be surprised how old these guys are that are actually doing it. But where do you get the operational experience? Right. It's old guys that have flown that or worked and worked those environments. That's where you find the guys that are salty enough to do that kind of work. And it comes directly from the government, and if you keep the war going, you keep the contract. I mean, there's 12 times the number of contractors that are uniformed people, and that. I mean, there's a friend of mine, contractor. They can't go resupply the embassy in Kabul by ground because it sinks. So they bring in supplies to an LZ and they external it. External lift by helicopters, and he's one of the the external hookup team crews that goes and gives them their water and their supplies and everything, because you can't do it by land because they'll get jumped. So it's too dangerous to do it, so they have to external it in under the security. And he's doing what he did when he served the country, but he's for 9 months worth of work, he's he's
a little bit more.
But he's in body armor. He has a weapon. He has to secure a perimeter that he can receive the supplies, whatever it is, water, food, or mail, or whatever it is. And then he's got to have the helicopters come in and hook it up. So yeah, you got to be paid to do that. At the deal.
Boy,
we're talking about a lot of truth here, man. We're just gonna tell the truth here. This should be the truth, sir. But
you know what?
I should have a beer. I'm much better with a beer. I'm much better with adult drinks. Yeah. Well,
we got some single malt whiskey.
Yeah,
you brought me.
Yeah, I just wanted a friend of mine. I thought you'd enjoy that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So since you talked about the truth and all that, this gives me a second to talk about PatriotTV.live, which is what we are on right now. We're on Facebook and YouTube, but PatriotTV.live is the platform that we have been graciously asked to be a part of, and one of their shows is called Truth Slingers.
Oh, no kidding.
And Sean George, Beardo, Beardvet Coffee, beardvet.com, the coffee company we're gonna be the race, the 5K they do a charity of the month where a portion of every sale goes to a charity. In October, that's going to be the 5K, the MCO, your 5K.
That's
so.
I'm humbled by that.
Beardo is an ex-Marine as well. So, and I believe he's in Beardo. I don't know. Todd, do you have the feed up on Patriot?
I have
the message
our
feed?
feed up.
The messages?
Yeah.
Beardo, if you're listening, are you part of the Marine Corps League there in Omaha? I think in Omaha, yeah. In Omaha, that's where he's at. But anyway, that's a big deal, and we might as well talk about the race. As we talked about, this is the 37th year.
Right, yes.
For the race. And why don't you talk about a little bit, I believe it was after Beirut, how it came about.
The formation of the Semper Fi 5K charity run for children came about from the disaster, the terrorist attack in Beirut of the Marine barracks, the Mao that was there, Colonel Garrett's Garrity's unit. Of course, it was the start of terrorist operations, kind of a modus operandi or a military of suicide bombers that would come in and detonate a bomb. And so they ran in one night on the 23rd of October and past the guards. The rules of engagement said you couldn't have a clip in your so they had to load and chamber before and that was the rules of engagement there. You couldn't have a clip in the security perimeter around the headquarters. Of course, it went past the barricades of the entrance and into the lobby, detonated. It was estimated at 800 pounds of TNT. Brought the building down, killing 240 plus, 2 Army, several sailors, but mostly Marines of that unit. Just at the same time, a young lieutenant was coming here to flight training after infantry training at TBS, and he had gone through IOC, and he reported aboard that week, and he asked for an office call to the CO. At the time, it was a guy named Bull Bland, Robert Bland, who is a Silver Star recipient, 46 assault pilot in Vietnam. And he was the CO of the group, and all the Marines that were training in the panhandle of Florida asked the XO for an office call, came in and said, we got to do something in support of the families that lost Marines, family members in this tragedy. We have to do something for their children. He said, well, what do you have in mind? What's your course of action there, Lieutenant? And the lieutenant said, we ought to put on a run. It was really popular to have these 10K. Back in those days, it was 10Ks. It was 6 miles, right? It was a more fit America, right? Obviously. So we ought to have a 10K, and we ought to run and support, and we ought to give that money to establish a fund a scholarship fund for the children and the families of the Marines and sailors and soldiers that have been lost. And he goes, great, you're the project officer for this. What assets do you need? And the lieutenant did it. He took he delayed his flight training for about 6 months so that he could put on this race. It was run at NES Pensacola. Back then, they had the big hangar that was on the water for their athletic, supported by the athletic fund there. Everything was donated. There was no T-shirts. Everything was donated, from Coke to the printing of the flyers to the advertising. The lieutenant went out. Vince Webbs at the time was the mayor, and he gave a proclamation to the city endorsing this as a fundraiser for the children. It had about 600 runners, and mostly military. One of the group commanders, Janie Bearclaw, won the overall women's event, and there was another. The commandant heard about it. It was then and sent a brigadier general named Joe Hoare down. He was the CO of Paris Island at the time. Later to become CENTCOM, 4-star CENTCOM, and he came down and received the check that we had brought in proceeds. The entry fee was $6. They called it the Beirut Relief 10K run to help the children to start a scholarship fund. And there was one wife that lost her husband, who was a captain, Captain Older, who was a Pensacola native, and came out and talked about her husband's service to our country. That was pretty moving. We gave the race gave $4,000 to start the fund.
Wow.
That the predecessor to Colonel Bland kept it going, continuing to contribute to the Beirut Relief Fund that was established by the Marine Corps for scholarships. Later on, I came back to be a CO of the Marine Advanced Helicopter Squadron out at Whiting Field. I had a babysitter come in for my two small children. Her name was Sarah Older, and I said, "Are you related to?" And she said, "Yes, that was my dad. Captain Older was my dad." And she said, "I went to college. I'm going to college on the scholarship fund that was created." So about, it was about 17 years later, the scholarship fund was helping the kids go to college at that time.
That's awesome.
It shifted. The scholarship fund was closed out, and the MATSIC, the group COs that were in charge of all the Marines that were training in this area, shifted it to children's charities and nonprofit organizations. It started with the New Horizons and then added on Escambia Westgate School. And those were the two that stayed on and then added on. About 5 years ago, the Marine Corps group, CO, decided this is too much to do as a give out, and it was a great, number one, it showed that we were going to give back to the community that was supporting Marines that were flying and landing in your pools and watering your bushes in different ways and parking your truck. A grateful community to their active duty Marines that said, "Hey, don't worry about that. And how about a bologna sandwich while you wait for the truck to
Right.
you?" An active duty. Number two, it showed the flag of the active duty people, and we would run through the streets, all the formations active. It showed the flags of these are great Americans that are representing us in uniform and risking their lives, not only in training, but going forward in combat. And number three, giving back to the children. Veterans' children are in those programs, giving back to the children of this community. There's no better way to show a grateful nation how much we appreciate their support than to give back to the children of that grateful nation that need help, that need support, that need a hand up. There's no better way to
Right.
show where we can give back. And so they selected it about 5 years ago. It was about 5 years ago that the COs said, "Gee, this is too much. We're getting too busy with our training. We can't really support this anymore." And the Marine Corps League picked it up. The Commandant then said, "What? We can't let this die." Fortunately, we knew someone in total employment leasing that the only reason it kept going is because we went in partnership with total employment leasing. And it was about I'd say 6 weeks before that we found out it was going, and total employment leasing said, we'll support that in partnership for you. We'll keep this going. And really, that's the only reason the Marine Corps League didn't have the resources, the manpower, the money. It was total employment leasing in partnership with a veterans fraternity that whole charter is giving back to the community that supports veterans, giving back to those active, showing gratitude. 2019, $37,000, 800 runners, of which we distributed almost $5,000 to 6 charities in the local area. Of course, 2020, we had to take a little pause, but we're back. We're back. We always dedicate this race to someone that's meant a lot to us in the Pensacola area and meant a lot in the service of our nation. 2019 was Chappie James, favorite son, and national hero, in my opinion. It rose to the ranks, 4-star general and combatant commander that rose to the ranks. Grew up right here. His mother was a teacher, and his rule of thumb is there was 11th commandment that thou shalt not quit. Thou shalt not quit. In the eyes of adversity, I shall not quit in trying to give back to this nation at any level I could. Thou shalt not quit. I mean, the intestinal fortitude that was forged in a childhood in Pensacola, Florida, birthed a national hero that contributed significantly in inspiration on the battlefield. He was the real deal. This year,
his pictures on what?
Now this year. It's General Pittman.
Yep.
It's General Pittman who left us in the COVID year in February 13th, 2020. And I will tell you, anybody that knows anything about the engagements from Vietnam all the way through knows General Pittman, because he was the real thing. He didn't care about the uniform or the thing. None of that. That was white out of a chicken's butt. All he cared about was the Marines in his charge, the Marines in his care, and leading those Marines in combat. He was the real deal. He was the real thing. Nothing else mattered but that he lived it in the way he led. His leadership style, his actions he took, which were the convictions, the window, the billboards of his beliefs in his heart. There was no better warrior. No one would say that knows for this nation over my lifetime. People might have matched him, but there was no better in combat than General Pittman in leading Marines. And he said, when a mission came down, he looked them in all the eye, who is going with me? Who is, he wouldn't say, Jim, you got the lead, good luck. Right? Who is going with me? Who will be on my wing tonight for this? Shot down 7 times in Vietnam, orchestrated the Desert One combat mission for the extraction of the hostages in Tehran. He was absolutely the most genuine example of personal sacrifice and humility to this nation that you will ever see on a battlefield. He exuded self-sacrifice in all he did. And he exuded humility in everything he did. It was always his Marines, his thing. But who is going with me? Who's going to go do this with me? I'll be there every step of the way. Who will come with me?
Out front.
Who will join me in doing the right thing? Courageous, unbelievably courageous on the battlefield. We miss him. We miss him. And,
even in the civilian situation, he would get it done.
Oh,
New Orleans.
Oh, New Orleans.
Howard Johnson's.
Yeah, he's convalescing. He's at the MAG, the reserve MAG, as an active duty expertise. There is a sniper on the New Orleans building pinning down civilians in the post. He mans in bad weather a 46 manned up with 50 calibers, and he goes up in bad weather, exposing himself, and shoots that sniper with 50 cals off the building.
Permission
Without
to take that
permission.
46.
Without permission. He said, who's going with me? We're just going to do the right thing here. They're in a predicament that needs us. We're just going to do the right thing. The Marine Corps wanted to court-martial him. The governor of Louisiana wanted to give him the Medal of Honor. And so in between the two, I think he was decorated, and then he came to be the group commander here at Pensacola, Florida. He was one of the group commanders, of which long legacy of great group commanders. You have the great Santini, Colonel Conroy was the first group commander. Of course, you have General Pittman, and of course, Spider Nyland was a group commander here in Pensacola. But
Pensacola has a rich history for military and the Marine Corps.
You know, he would never say this about himself, but no one ever does it. It's the real deal. But the courage of America to defend this nation's ideology, way of life, he embodied that in combat. I mean, he was just, he's just overwhelmingly courageous and self-sacrificing in his. We should have scraped some DNA off him, make the next master race of great leaders. We got to get Ted Williams them and get frozen because, he was the real deal.
I want to say I found out about him about 4 years ago. We met, how this came about with TEL, Total Employee Leasing. TEL, staffing now, I think Ronald Smith probably hooked us up.
Yes.
And we had breakfast at the Village Inn.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's how we, how it all got started between us and how you and I met. We met that morning. We didn't really get to know each other that morning until a couple years later. When I took over kind of helping with the fundraising.
You were the project officer for TEL.
Yeah. And so, when Ronald told me about that, he goes, General Pittman goes out to the Shaker all the time. My daughter worked at the Shaker.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. And I said, as soon as I found out, I'm like, I call her up and I'm like, Hannah, do you know General Pittman? And she goes, who? I go, General Pittman. He's Marine Corps Lieutenant General. She goes, oh, you mean Chuck? And I go, no, I don't mean Chuck. I do not mean Chuck. And you can't call him.
Oh, man.
She goes, well, that's what I call him.
Yeah.
And so, almost the very next time I was out there, he was sitting at the corner of that middle bar there. And I went up and introduced myself to him, and the most gracious, and I do not have it on me, Ed, don't ask me, but I got a 3-star coin that night.
Yes.
And, the most genuine, gracious.
You'd never know.
And I hated to
Call me Chuck.
Yeah.
Call me Chuck.
It was an honor.
Yeah, he was, Well, golly, I'm glad you had that experience with
It
him,
was,
because
yeah.
he was moving. He was genuine, sincere about his life's endeavors, and the real deal on the battlefield in fighting for America. He was just, I stayed in the Marine Corps, not because I didn't have other opportunities. I stayed because I wanted to be like people like that. They could fly an aircraft like that. They could lead Marines like that. They could inspire people beyond their own personal agenda, their own personal motivation to join me in doing the right thing. I hoped I could be like that someday, and that's the kind of leader he was. You wanted to be like him
Right.
someday, and that's why Marines kept. It's not for the fancy uniforms or the exotic travel or anything. It's a calling. You don't even get any money. There's no. At the end of the day, you're going home like everybody else. But you hope you can be like that someday. You can hope you can lead Marines, motivate people, be that tactically proficient when you want to find out if you're really going to do something that far exceeds your own safety, your own personal agenda for the guy to the left or the right on you, to find out really what you're made of. I mean, am I going to think about myself here, or am I going to think about the Marines in my charge here, in my care right now? And he was that guy. He was the guy that everybody said, I hope I can be like him someday. So, and there's been 3 or 4 in my career that I wanted to be like.
Well, I think you made a pretty good effort at that.
Well,
I think the people around you, and that, in the Marine Corps League and the guys I meet and stuff would, give credence to that.
Well, I think I was a pretty fleet average Marine that gave a lot of effort and was. I
thought he was crap, but he was average.
Yeah, I was a true believer. I was. I really believed that this was the right thing to do all the way to the end. So.
Humility is another quality of that type of man.
Well, yeah. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, he was the guy, and we're dedicating the race to him.
The race is dedicated to him. The race is Saturday, November 13th. That would be 2 days after Veterans Day.
Yes.
So that's kind of exciting that it's
really exciting
that it's going to be done then. It starts and ends at Seville Quarter in downtown Pensacola.
Yeah, Running Wild is executing it, and they always join us in executing it. Seville Quarter is so gracious in hosting it. It goes through the Maritime Park in downtown and the historic district. It's a beautiful layout of the race. VFW and American Legion come out and flip hamburgers. There's pizza donated.
Free beer, free hamburgers, free pizza.
It's fun. We'll have a jumpy for the kids. But the most important thing is all the proceeds, everything that we generate, it goes to 6 children's organizations that are providing incredible services for our community.
Most of those kids, mentally or physically challenged or family challenged, right? And so Boys and Girls Club of the Emerald Coast, New Horizon of Northwest Florida, Escambia Westgate School, the Miracle League, which is pretty cool, Gulf Coast Kids House, and the Lead Academy.
And the Lead Academy of Santa Rosa, and all tremendous work for children in this community. You're going to see a lot of military units out there. We had 5 units out there running in formation.
Right, that was cool and impressive.
And also junior ROTCs for many of the high schools. It's a fun day. It's going to be a cooler day than usually in September.
Right.
And it's during a time when we honor our veterans in November. So with that in mind, it's great fun. It's a wonderful experience. It's pure. It's totally pure. That the foundation work is being done by TEL, our partners in leadership in this thing, and the Marine Corps League. And again, all your proceeds go to these charities. And we don't make a big deal out of giving those checks because we don't want to make a big deal. But the charities, it's nice in a one-day event that we can walk up and give them a $5,000, a $7,000, a $10,000 check. It goes a long way.
This year we're looking to get close to 10,000.
Our goal is we made 37,000 for the charities last year. Our goal is 50,000 this year and 500 runners. We had with the units in 2019, over 800 runners were in the street.
With the units, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a glorious.
Wow.
We'll have a family member of the Pittman family out there. We had Chappie James' brother. Our son was out there to say a couple words about Chappie.
I remember that.
We usually have a mayor or a government official set it off. We have the group comes out with their color guard and all stuff. So it's a great day to feel good about America. It's a great day to give back to a community that supports our active duty training here and supports veterans in this community. It's a wonderful way to feel good about America because these are all really, really fine organizations.
Deserving.
People. Deserving.
The kids.
We give them a venue to talk about their what they do for the children, and that's nice to hear what an incredible job they do for the kids.
Chappie's brother, you said, right? That was 2019.
Right.
And so in 2018, did General Pittman help kick it off?
He did. He was the honorary starter.
Yep.
He pulled the lanyard on the cannon to kick it off. So he was the honorary starter.
Yeah, so just within a couple of years ago, he was still involved in getting out there.
Yeah, he was out there and supporting and making sponsorship. We have early registration all the way up with our own website to register. It's semperfi5k.org. semperfi5k.org. You will see either a link to We Run Wild, that's the Running Wild website. It's kind of the authorized running shop of the Panhandle.
Right.
Or the Marine Corps League Pensacola. You'll see a link to it. And you can go in and register. You can donate money. You can register. $25 for early registration. And you get a wonderful day, great food, and an incredible T-shirt. It will be one of a kind because it'll have General Pittman's portrait on it. So it'll be I'm
guessing it'll also say, like the poster, "Who's going with me?"
Who's going with me? Who's going to be on my wing today? So with that in mind, we're looking forward to a great turnout. We're 4 months out. So plenty of time to get registered, but we're looking forward to a great turnout and a great day in Pensacola. I don't know of any more benevolent community that supports veterans and active duty forces training for the operations forces than Pensacola, Florida. It's an amazing.
It's really a special place.
Oh, it's incredibly special place. I even said that when I was the group commander there. I wouldn't have moved this training anywhere else. I don't know of a better, more benevolent community. We were landed in their pools, we're parking on their streets, and they come out and say, "Don't worry about that. You're okay. Are you a Marine?" So
Right.
With that in mind, I don't know any community that would support operational training for the active duty forces forward more than this community. Pensacola, Florida is, and the Panhandle of Florida is the most amazing area that I've ever known for that. Patriotic, loyal.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming tonight.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
Well, again, golly, we did a lot of truth telling tonight, and
well, we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah,
and maybe when we do it again, we'll talk about somebody who was the UVA light heavyweight champion for 2 years.
Yeah. Well, I look, that was, I was weak but slow as a boxer, and so I always looked like I lost what I won. And my father came to the last, event, sponsored by Gold Gloves, and he said, "Don't ever do that again," because, it was always an accident. They tripped and slipped and fell on my fist, and they knocked themselves out. And so, I threw some hands in my day.
As I mentioned earlier, humility. So, but anyway, Caveman, Colonel, thanks for being here. We'll do the Gulf Coast Business Advocate on a Thursday morning, or on a morning one.
Terrific.
Down the road here to get it out there again, and we'll have you back and talk about some more stories, and talk about maybe you grew up in Florida, down at St. Andrew's School in Boca.
Yes.
So we'll talk a little more about, the old days, maybe a little bit, and get the race promoted some more.
Hey, Jim, I'd just like to thank you for this time you had to let me run my mouth and share some opinion. Everybody has one, right? Right? Yeah, like other things on our anatomy.
Well, people are happy to have you talking instead of me sharing my opinion.
Yeah, I don't. I'd just like to thank Total Employment Leasing for partnering us in leadership of this event that gives so much back, and also keeping it going over 37 years. It just means a whole lot to me that we extend ourselves beyond our own worlds, and I'm not looking for happiness in my life. I mean, I think that's I'm looking for joy, the joy I feel in contributing to something I believe in. I just want to feel the joy of making a difference in something that means something to someone else, and I only wish that joy on everybody. Happiness. You can buy everybody a lollipop and get happiness, or a car. Say, I don't need happiness. I need the feeling of making a contribution that makes a difference in somebody's life, and feeling the joy that I made a difference along the way. And that's what this is. Overwhelmingly joyful for me.
Well, it's your passion for it is obvious whenever we talk. So, and we're very fortunate to have Gene and Wayne Brown with TEL, that agreed to partner with them with the Marine Corps League.
Wouldn't have gone on without them.
Yep, and it's been awesome, and I have all 3 of my T-shirts from the previous 3 races since we got in.
Yeah.
I gave one to a guy that I played tennis with on Saturday mornings. I can't remember his last name. First name's Mike. He lives out on there on the beach, and I was wearing one of them to play tennis one morning, and he's like, "Where'd you get that shirt?"
Yeah.
And I go, "I got one for you, Mike." And so I had an extra that fit him that I brought to him, and he thanks me for it every time I see him.
Oh, man. Well, that's good. And this year's shirt will be spectacular. The event will, good food, good patriotism, wonderful feeling of doing something to contribute to someone's life.
Right. It's a good time. Colonel, thank you. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Ed, thanks for being here.
Ed, thanks for being here.
Todd, thanks for manning the board as usual.
Thanks, Todd. I appreciate it.
Putting up with my BS. And Patriot TV Live, thank you. And we will see you next week on Play Harder Radio.